She said, "I'm not happy," and just like that, she left, vanishing from my life like a gust of wind. I used to think the most painful thing was betrayal, when love shattered due to lies or hatred. But then I realized it's 1,000 times more painful when you're left by someone who still says they love you simply because they no longer love the life they have with you. It's an invisible cut, one that doesn't bleed, but it gnaws at your soul until there's nothing left but emptiness and an unanswered question, a cruel meaninglessness. There's no drama of betrayal here, no shocking secrets or fiery arguments, just a dull ache, an emptiness born from the quietest separation, an unseen wound that gnaws at your soul to its core. This is my story about my marriage to Madison and how a seemingly simple sentence completely changed my life. This story isn't about blame or recrimination, it's about accepting a harsh truth. Sometimes love is still there, but happiness vanishes. It's a tragedy of quiet indifference, of things left unsaid until it's too late. Because there's a heartbreaking truth. Not everyone who leaves you does so because you did something wrong. Some people leave simply because they no longer see the light in that life, even if that light might be you. Listen to my story so you can reflect on your own relationships to understand that sometimes silence is more terrifying than any storm. I'm Elijah, 37, a civil engineer living in the suburbs of St. Louis. My life from the outside seemed perfectly enviable. I had a stable job, a charming little house with a garden big enough to grow a few fruit trees, something I dreamed of since childhood, and 2 chubby cats named Luna and Shadow, who were always loyal furry companions, bringing laughter and warmth to the house. At the center of that world was Amelia, the woman I fell in love with at 25, a love at first sight that proved enduring. We married when I was 28 with a simple wedding full of smiles and promises of a fulfilling future. Looking back at the early days, our love wasn't boisterous or passionate like young couples, but it was deep and full of understanding. Amelia was a talented marketing professional, always full of creative ideas and a delicate sensibility. She brought a balance to my life that I lacked, a softness that I didn't possess. We weren't the kind of couple who displayed affection in public, nor were we intensely romantic like in movies. People often called us the peaceful couple. A very accurate description. Our lives flowed calmly, not too vibrant, not too cold, just enough to feel safe, just enough to feel like we had each other. We painted bright future pictures, a small family with children's laughter travels to explore the world and growing old together on the worn armchair in this very house. Every weekend we'd go grocery shopping together. Amelia would read the shopping list, and I'd push the cart occasionally, glancing at her, watching her intently picking out vegetables and feeling a warmth in my heart. Back home, we'd cook simple meals together, the fragrant smell of food filling the kitchen. In the evenings, we'd curl up on the sofa watching documentaries on Netflix, Amelia often resting her head on my shoulder, Luna and Shadow nestled in our laps. There were no big arguments, no prolonged fights stretching late into the night, no slamming of doors in anger, no blaming each other for trivial daily issues. Everything was fine, and I, a simple man whose work revolved around numbers and solid structures, believed too much in that fine. I believed the absence of conflict was a sign of a strong relationship and unshakable foundation. But now looking back, that word fine didn't carry the positive meaning I once thought. It was a false sense of security, a stillness bordering on indifference where there was no turbulence but also no growth, no deep connection. It was a stagnant pond where the water simply collected and gradually the air became stifling. I overlooked the small signals, the tiny cracks I didn't notice, or perhaps deliberately chose not to notice. Looking back, Amelia had started spending more time reading in her own room, quietly closing the door instead of watching movies with me in the living room. She started taking solo walks in the late afternoon, saying she needed space to breathe and think. At first it was once a week, then it gradually increased to 2-3 times. I thought it was a sign of an independent woman that she needed her personal space. She also started taking a pottery class on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, a new hobby she hadn't pursued before, nor shown any interest in. She even enrolled in online courses in philosophy and psychology fields I had no idea she was interested in. I thought those were good signs that she was developing herself, that she was happy with new things. I always asked, "Are you happy, my love? Is our life okay?" And she always replied with a faint, slightly forced smile, "Yes, I'm fine. Everything's good, honey." And I believed her. I believed the words, the forced smiles, the quietness I mistook for happiness. I didn't realize that our silence wasn't the harmony of two souls, but a lack of deep communication, an awkwardness in confronting real issues. Our fine wasn't contentment, but a resigned acceptance, a deep-seated complacency for both of us. We were too focused on building a physically solid house with a strong foundation and a sturdy roof, but we forgot to nurture the fire within, letting it flicker and then slowly die out in that very false sense of security. I thought our love was too strong, too safe to need daily care or nurturing. I was wrong, until one March afternoon when the cold winds of early spring still lingered, weaving through the leaves carrying an omen I couldn't recognize. It was a fateful afternoon, an afternoon when my entire fine world completely collapsed without a sound, without a warning, only deadly silence. The first secret revealed: an okay relationship doesn't mean a happy one. The absence of conflict can mask a lack of communication, resignation, and invisible cracks. The man overly trusting of external stability can overlook subtle signs of his partner's loneliness, detachment, or changes in their personal interests and habits. That okay is a trap, a false comfort zone where the flame of love slowly dies out due to indifference and lack of continuous nurturing. That fateful March afternoon, I was still at my computer typing out the last work email of the day. Outside, faint golden rays of sunlight tried to pierce through the gray clouds, but weren't enough to warm the cold air inside the room. I heard Amelia's soft footsteps. She walked into the living room, not approaching me as usual to ask about my workday. She stood there at a distance, just enough for me to clearly see her face, and I felt a strange tension, an indescribable coldness in the air. Her hands were lightly clasped, a small habit of Amelia's when she was anxious or deeply contemplating something important. I looked up, saw her gaze distant, unfocused, not on me but seemingly looking through me, through this entire room. I asked, my voice still carrying the fatigue of work and the carefree, even somewhat naive assumption of a man who believed everything was still very fine. "Are you okay, Amelia? You're home late today? Is there anything I can help with?" she replied, her voice neither high nor low, completely devoid of emotion, yet echoing clearly in the quiet room like a fateful pronouncement. "I'm not happy, Elijah." Just that. Just one sentence. No tears, no anger, no accusations, no resentment that I had once thought would appear if there were any issues in our marriage. Not a single tear, not a single criticism, not a single emotion revealed. Just a calm, cold statement, like a sharp blade severing the invisible thread that connected us, a thread I had believed was so strong it couldn't break. But I clearly heard my heart crack into pieces, shattering into 1,000 tiny fragments that couldn't be reassembled. It wasn't a loud sound, but a deafening noise in my mind, like the irretrievable sound of crystal breaking. My whole world seemed to stop spinning. Everything became blurred, only that sentence reverberating in my head. I tried to breathe deeply, tried to regain my composure. I had always been a rational man, always believed that every problem could be solved with logic and communication. I asked her, my voice trembling, faltering, laced with pleading and despair, "Amelia, what do you need? What can I do? What's wrong? Can you tell me? We can figure it out together." I asked all the questions a responsible husband would ask. I was prepared to hear a long list of complaints, desires, criticisms. I was ready to apologize, to fix things, to change anything she wanted. She looked at me, her gaze still distant, unfocused, as if looking into nothingness rather than at me. "I don't know, Elijah. I really don't know. I just know I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in this house. I don't want to be in this life anymore. I need to get out." That statement was even more painful than if she had just pointed at me and said, "I don't love you anymore." Because she didn't say she didn't love me. She just said she didn't want to be here. That meant I, or the life we had built together, had become a burden, a boredom, a dead end for her. All my efforts, all my quiet sacrifices, all my belief in our fine became meaningless. I felt like a man who had just realized he was living in a play where he was the only character who didn't know, the script didn't know what role he was playing or what the ending of the play would be. I kept thinking everything was going well and I was a good actor, but it turned out I was just a puppet in my own play. I didn't know what to do, what to say. Every question, every plea, every promise got stuck in my throat. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I saw an Amelia completely unfamiliar. Not an angry Amelia or a heartbroken one or a weak one, but a cold, decisive woman, utterly expressionless. I realized that the absence of emotion in that statement was scarier than any rage. It showed that emptiness had deeply consumed her soul, to the point where she no longer felt sadness or anger, only a desperate sense of entrapment and a desire to escape. It was a pain that couldn't be named, couldn't be touched. The second secret revealed: a calm, emotionless statement like "I'm not happy" can cause a greater collapse than any argument or betrayal. It indicates that emptiness and entrapment have deeply consumed a person's soul to the point where they are unable to express negative emotions. The man, despite doing nothing wrong, feels immense pain realizing that he or their shared life has become a burden, a cruel secret unveiled by terrifying indifference. Even scarier is that his goodness became a trap, stripping him of any reason to be angry or to fix things, pushing him into a state of complete helplessness. After that fateful statement, everything happened chillingly fast and quietly, as if a silent blizzard swept through my life. I didn't know how to react. I couldn't be angry, couldn't accuse because she hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't betrayed me with someone else. There was no third party involved. No big secrets were revealed, at least not in the way I understood betrayal. It was just one of us woke up and realized their heart was empty of their current life to the point where they felt nothing at all. Amelia started packing her things in just one evening. I stood there helpless, watching her move quietly from room to room like a pre-programmed robot. She didn't yell, didn't complain, didn't blame me for anything. Each item was neatly folded, carefully placed in her suitcase. Every piece of clothing, every favorite book, every small personal item, as if she were preparing for a long business trip rather than leaving a marriage that had lasted nearly a decade. She didn't specify what went wrong or why she made such a cruel decision with such composure. Whenever I tried to ask more, tried to find a reason, a logical explanation, she would just sigh and repeat the same old phrase, cold and emotionless like a machine. "I don't know, Elijah, I'm just not happy." I tried to hold on, tried to find a reason to cling to a logical explanation so I could understand and fix it. "Did I do something wrong? Did I not care enough about you? I promise I'll change. I'll spend more time with you. We'll travel, do things you like." But she just shook her head. "No, you were always good to me. You're a good husband, a good man. I just need something else. I need to find myself again." Her answer, though not accusatory, was like 1,000 carefully sharpened needles piercing my heart without drawing blood. I would rather have been accused, rather have been angry, rather have been betrayed than to hear such cold, emotionless words. It made me feel worthless, not enough to keep her, not enough for her to fight for this marriage. It stripped me of every reason to be angry, every reason to seek forgiveness, every reason to fight. It put me in a no-win situation. I was good, but my goodness wasn't enough to keep her. It wasn't my fault, nor was it hers. It was just unhappiness, an amorphous emotion, an elusive ghost that had gnawed at her from within. I don't know where she went, only that she wasn't here anymore, not with me anymore. She said she'd stay with a close friend in another city for a few weeks, then find her own apartment. We didn't have a big argument. There was no tearful farewell at the doorstep, no vows, no promises. Just an awkward hug, a cold touch of the hand, a whisper, "I'll take good care of Luna and shadow Amelia." And she nodded, pulling her suitcase out of the house. The door closed and I stood there in the familiar house, now strangely empty, as if its soul had been drained. Her departure, a soundless, traceless departure, left a huge void in me. I felt like I was dreaming a terrible nightmare I couldn't wake from, couldn't escape. I walked around the house, touching her remaining belongings, the half-read books on the shelf, the coffee mug she used every morning on the kitchen counter, the scarf she left on the chair. Everything was exactly as it had been. But her warmth was gone, and the space became stifling, lifeless. I realized that the absence of conflict isn't always a good sign. Sometimes it's the accumulation of unresolved disappointments, unheard desires, until everything shatters in terrifying silence. The third secret revealed, a quiet separation without arguments or blame can cause greater pain than betrayal. When a partner leaves simply because they're not happy, without giving specific reasons, it implies that the problem lies with the shared life itself, not a personal failing, leaving the remaining partner feeling helpless, worthless, and unable to find a way to reconcile or repair. The silence in separation is a cruel secret gnawing at the remaining partner's soul with emptiness and unanswered questions. The most terrifying part is that the goodness of the left-behind person isn't enough to make the departing person stay, rendering all their efforts and character meaningless. A week after Amelia left, I lived like a ghost haunting my own home. I went to work completing tasks mechanically, sometimes even forgetting to eat lunch. Back home, I just wanted to lie on the sofa staring at the ceiling or mindlessly playing with Luna and Shadow, stroking their soft fur as if seeking a bit of warmth, a lingering connection. The house became too big, too empty, and the silence surrounded me, submerging me in chaotic thoughts. In that silence, I clearly heard the echo of that fateful sentence, "I'm not happy, Elijah." It kept repeating in my head like an inescapable curse. I couldn't bear it anymore. I needed an explanation. I needed to know what I did wrong. At least if I knew where I had failed, I could try to fix it or find a way to accept it, to atone. I gathered all my courage, my hand trembling as I picked up the phone and called her. The long rings echoed in the empty room, stretching endlessly as if challenging my patience and despair. I held my breath, waiting. Finally, she picked up. Her voice was still calm, without a ripple of emotion, as if we were just two casual acquaintances chatting after a long time apart, not husband and wife who had just separated. I asked, my voice trembling, full of fragile hope and utter despair, Amelia, I just called to ask, did I do anything wrong? What did I do to make you unhappy? I can fix it. Just tell me. She said gently, each word like a carefully sharpened knife, cutting deep into my heart without drawing blood. No, Elijah, you were always good. You are a good husband, a good man. You always took care of me. You always cared about me. You were always kind. I'm just not happy. You were always good. That compliment in this context was more painful than any accusation. It stripped me of every reason to be angry, every reason to seek forgiveness, every reason to fight. It put me in a no-win situation. I was good, but my goodness wasn't enough to keep her. It wasn't my fault, nor was it hers. It was just unhappiness, an amorphous emotion, an elusive ghost that had gnawed at her from within until she was no longer capable of feeling anything but emptiness. I once thought the most painful thing was betrayal, when trust was trampled by deceit, by dishonesty. I once thought that pain was ultimate, the absolute limit of suffering. But now I know, it's even more painful when you are left by someone who still says they love you, who still acknowledges your good qualities simply because they no longer love the life they have with you. They no longer find meaning, joy, or light in the shared life you tried to nurture with all your heart. They don't hate you. They don't betray you. They simply no longer want to be there. It's a complete rejection of your existence in their life, but not because you are bad, but because they have changed or have realized they need something different that you cannot provide. A feeling of helplessness and emptiness surged, completely overwhelming me. I could do nothing. I couldn't fix something whose cause I didn't understand. I couldn't fight against something as intangible as unhappiness. It's an answer no one wants to hear because it's meaningless. It doesn't allow you to find liberation or a foothold to start over. It's simply the acceptance of a harsh truth. Everything has ended not because of a mistake, but because of one party's emotional exhaustion, an exhaustion I didn't recognize and couldn't possibly fill. I tried to search for articles online, read books on marital psychology, trying to decipher the phrase, "I'm not happy." Was I too focused on work? Did I neglect her? Was I not romantic enough? Thousands of questions swirled in my head, but none led to a satisfactory answer. Because the answer lay within Amelia herself in a hidden corner I couldn't reach, couldn't understand. I realized that the absence of a specific reason was even more painful than the worst reason. It leaves you not knowing what to heal, what to do to move forward. The fourth secret revealed. The answer, "You were always good, I'm just not happy," is one of the cruelest breakups. It strips away all reason for resentment or repair, leaving the person behind feeling helpless, worthless, and inexplicably rejected. The pain of being left not due to fault, but due to the other person's emotional exhaustion, is a harsh secret, confirming the meaninglessness of all efforts and leaving the person behind unable to find a reason to heal. The lack of a specific cause is more haunting than any reason, pushing the person behind into a state of despair when they cannot find liberation or a foothold to move forward. When Amelia uttered the fateful words, "I'm not happy," I couldn't believe my ears. Everything inside me collapsed, but not like a castle destroyed by bombs. Rather, it was the collapse of a structure built from sand, from things I thought were solid but turned out to have no foundation. I had thought we had a safe life, a love deep enough not to need drama or adventures. I had mistakenly equated calmness with contentment and the absence of arguments with harmony. I began to look back at my days, my regular routines, my superficial conversations. We often talked about work, weekend plans, bills to pay. But how long had it been since we talked about our secret dreams, our deep fears, our private aspirations? I remembered times Amelia tried to suggest a backpacking trip in Nepal, or a salsa dancing class, or even just a spontaneous date night at a new restaurant. I usually replied, "Later, honey, I'm busy with this project," or "Those things are expensive, let's save for the future." I thought I was being responsible, providing for our family. But I forgot that the future is built from present moments, from small joys every day. I tried to recall the time she looked at me with a wistful gaze, the time she sighed when I was engrossed in work, or the time she said, "I'm tired," when I wanted to invite her somewhere. I explained all of it by her work pressure, by the fatigue of life. I never dug deeper, never asked, "What are you tired of, Amelia? Are you tired of our life itself?" I was so confident in our fine that I didn't want to disturb it, didn't want to confront any uncomfortable truth that might shatter that false peace. The feeling of helplessness when she left was the most terrible. I tried to find a third person, a specific cause to blame, to have an object for my anger to release the pain. But there was none. No one else but the emptiness within Amelia herself. She had run out of energy to maintain a life that she didn't feel meaningful, didn't feel happy. She didn't hate me. She might even still love me in some way, but that love wasn't enough to pull her out of the deep hole of emptiness in her soul. It was a cruel truth. Love was still there, but it couldn't heal unhappiness. Amelia didn't leave me because I was bad, not because there was someone else. She left me because our very fine had killed her soul. The stability I prided myself on was an invisible cage imprisoning the desires for freedom, the dreams of exploration, the intense emotions she might have tried to express, but I failed to recognize. She needed a change, a breakthrough, a life with more colors and new experiences. I, in my safe complacency, had inadvertently turned her into a trapped woman, unable to soar. Long nights I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I imagined what Amelia was doing. Was she happy somewhere? I wondered if she was enjoying new experiences that I couldn't provide. Or was she still lost, still searching for the happiness she spoke of? I felt a terrible torment. On one hand, I wanted her to be happy. On the other hand, it pained me that she didn't find that happiness with me. I tried to search for some shocking secret hidden behind that statement, something bigger, more dramatic that I could blame. But the biggest secret was precisely the absence of a secret. It was the naked truth of a love that slowly died from silence, from a lack of emotional connection, from the mistaken belief that stability was enough. Amelia wasn't looking for another man. She was looking for another version of herself, another life she believed could bring her meaning. And I, in my safe indifference, couldn't provide that. It's been 2 years since that day, the day Amelia left like a gust of wind, leaving me alone in an empty house and a tangled mess in my soul. I still live in the old house, not because I can't move, but because I want to keep a piece of the past, a piece of the life I once had, and more importantly, I want to maintain stability for Luna and Shadow, our 2 cats. They're still here. They still curl up beside me every night. Their purrs are among the few sounds that warm the house. The TV is still Netflix. I still watch documentaries, sci-fi movies, but there's no crisp laughter from Amelia when she discovers a new show, no gentle squeeze of her hand during a romantic scene. That emptiness, it no longer stings, but it still aches like an old scar whenever the weather changes, whenever an old memory suddenly rushes back. I don't blame her. I'm not angry. Anger requires energy, and I've run out of energy for those emotions. I understand that she was honest with her feelings, however painful it was for me. I no longer try to find reasons, no longer try to understand. I've accepted that some answers you'll never get, and some departures don't need a specific reason at all, other than that someone no longer wants to stay, no longer finds happiness in that shared life. But some evenings, especially on rainy nights or empty weekends, when I sit alone in the silent living room, I still hear it echo in my head, clear in every syllable like an unbreakable curse. I'm not happy. And I wish she had said more. Why, Elijah? Why aren't you happy? What did I do wrong? Or did I change? Or are we just not compatible anymore? Just a reason, something I could understand so I could accept it more fully. But no, that answer will forever be a mystery, and I have to learn to live with it. I've been on a long journey to get here where I no longer dwell in sadness or self-blame. I sold the old car we used to take to the supermarket every weekend, replacing it with a more powerful pickup truck so I can easily transport camping gear, go fishing in distant lakes. I renovated the house, changing the living room wall color from pale beige to a soothing gray blue, bought a new patio set for the backyard, planted more of my favorite flowers. Small changes, but they help me feel like I'm creating a new space, a new life no longer too heavy, with Amelia's shadow and old memories. Every time I hammered a nail, every time I painted, I felt myself slowly mending the cracks in my soul. I started rebuilding my social circle consciously. I joined a local hiking club, exploring new trails in the majestic Rocky Mountains, breathing fresh air and feeling freedom. I found joy in cooking, experimenting with new recipes from around the world that I never had the time or interest to try before. Each successful dish was a small joy, a pride in my own abilities. I also enrolled in an advanced guitar class, continuing a childhood dream. The soothing melodies, the echoing chords in the empty room brought me an inner peace, an absolute focus, driving away all negative thoughts. I also spent more time with my family, with my parents, with my siblings who were always there for me throughout that difficult period. They didn't ask much about Amelia or what happened. They simply listened and supported me in every decision. I realized that I wasn't alone. I met up with old friends, people who had checked in on me, but I had avoided. I realized that loneliness is a choice. I started opening up more, sharing my thoughts, my fears, my hopes. I joined a book club where I could discuss books, new ideas. For the first time in many years, I felt alive, felt like myself, felt connected to people genuinely. As for Amelia, I still occasionally see her when we have our unavoidable coffee shop meetings near home to exchange necessary information about the lives of our 2 cats, Luna and Shadow. These encounters are no longer heavy or awkward. We can chat normally, asking each other about life. She seems more at peace, and so do I. I no longer feel resentment or anger. Only acceptance remains and a touch of nostalgia for what once was. I understand that she has found her own path, and I am finding mine too. We have forgiven each other, and more importantly, I have forgiven myself. I've learned that happiness isn't a destination but a journey. It's not about material stability or the absence of conflict. Happiness is the ability to feel, to connect, to accept imperfections, and to find joy in the smallest things in life. I've learned to live with the phrase, "I'm not happy," no longer tormenting myself to find a reason, but accepting it as part of my life story. That phrase, though painful, was the beginning of my rebirth, helping me find my own light again. And I've learned a valuable truth. Not everyone who leaves you does so because you did something wrong. Some people leave simply because they no longer see the light in that life, even if that light might be you. It's a heartbreaking truth, but it's also a liberation. It helped me stop blaming myself, stop searching for faults that didn't exist. It helped me understand that I can't force someone to stay if their heart no longer belongs there. Happiness is a personal journey, and sometimes two people's paths just diverge. Now I've found a new definition of happiness. It's not external stability, not the absence of conflict. It's inner peace, the acceptance of what cannot be changed, and the ability to find joy in the small things in life. It's been a long, painful journey, but I've finally found my own light. Thank you for listening to my story. A story without a fairy tale ending, but full of lessons about acceptance and inner strength. If you're also dealing with a departure that has no explanation, remember that you are not alone. Find ways to heal, to find your own light again, even if it comes from the smallest things in life. If this story touched your heart, or if you have any thoughts or feelings you'd like to share, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Please hit the like button, share this story with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on other profound stories. Stories about life, love, and the lessons we've paid a price to learn. Your support is what motivates me to keep sharing these pieces of my life so everyone can draw valuable lessons for themselves and build stronger relationships based on deep understanding, trust, and absolute sincerity. I'll see you in the next videos. Goodbye for now.